So this little tiny aphid almost ruined all of European wine. This aphid's called phylloxera, and it infects the roots of wine grapes, particularly European wine grapes. It comes from North America, and it made its way to Europe, where in the late 1800s, it devastated the rootstock. At the last possible minute, they discovered that American rootstock was resistant to this aphid. And so they had to regraft all of the wines in Europe with American roots. So they replanted almost every single vineyard in Europe. It's kind of like when you're moving and you get rid of all the crap you kind of don't really need. There was this grape Carmenere, and it didn't really do all that well in Bordeaux, so nobody replanted it. And it wasn't until a few years later that the neighbors started talking, they started looking around, and they realized that everybody got rid of Carmenere. And the grape was basically extinct and nobody had it anymore. Fast forward to Chile. They've been growing grapes in Chile since the 1500s. Spanish missionaries brought over the grapes. They've been making grapes, they've been making wine, yada yada, time goes on. In the 80s, they really beefed up production and they were planting grapes all over the place. And they planted a lot of Merlot. Only they had a problem with Merlot. It sucked. They couldn't get it to ripen, they couldn't get it to taste very good. It wasn't until 1991 that a French scientist came to Chile for a wine conference. And he came down there and one of the major wineries said, hey, can you come take a look at our fields and figure out our Merlot problem? We can't figure out how to make the Merlot better. And this French scientist walked out into the fields, looked around and said, this isn't Merlot, this is Carmenere. And so it turns out that the Chileans have been planting and growing Carmenere all over Chile, and they've been labeling it as Merlot because they didn't know what it was. The reason why they couldn't get the Merlot to taste very good, well, the Carmenere to taste very good, was because Carmenere takes an extra month on the vine to ripen and make it have that fruitiness and that freshness that is indicative of the grape. All along, they've been making this wine that kind of sucked because they thought that they were making Merlot. Whereas it turns out they've just been making under-ripened Carmenere. And the coolest thing about wine is even with all this modern technology and even with all the science we currently have, we're still figuring this out.